Hey, welcome back, friends. As you have seen in the intro, I'm trying my best to make this show even more entertaining. Today, we are talking about um, OT security marketing fails. And let me tell you why. Because I think that OT security marketing is taking a very concerning direction, a very concerning development. And that simply goes back to the fact that supply and demand have gone into a mismatch. So there is much more supply for OT security products and services than demand. Why is that in a nutshell? Well, because the lazy hackers don't do their job, right? So there are too few actual cyber physical attacks. That's the reality. In respect to that marketing picture, certainly I don't mind. I'm very happy that we see so few actual cyber physical attacks, but that causes trouble for those who only view that as a business, and especially those who think or who have been led to believe that this is a gigantic business and they want to have a piece of it. To give you an idea, let's just check out this publication or this announcement by Honeywell. It's 2 years old or 1.5 years when they acquired SCADA Fence. So they are looking to get a piece of this $10 billion market. I doubt if it's actually that big, but that leads us to the core of the problem. In my estimation, the market size have been vastly overestimated by interested parties. By the way, where do these numbers come from? They come from analysts who just do their projections in the 5-year future, etc. And then in their spreadsheets, all those markets become gigantic, and then you can buy their services in order to devise the best strategy to dominate that market. And that does not only apply to the large automation vendors such as Honeywell. It also certainly applies in a much stricter sense to venture-backed OT security vendors, because the investors, they only want to see growth. They don't care about anything else. Rightly so. I don't have any problem with that. But now that the demand is much bigger than the supply, they need to become creative. And this is what you see over the last couple of years, that the argument that is made why you should actually invest in OT security products and services is becoming disconnected from reality. So you're no longer talking about actual cyber physical attacks on the record, because there are so few. Again, I'm very happy about that. You are talking about threats and the criticality, how bad everything can be. You're talking about the threat actors who allegedly target your OT infrastructure. And the interesting thing is certainly, as long as those threat actors just remain shady, you could be led, so you could be fooled to believe, there's this dark menace, and all these researchers, they do their job, and they point out the danger and the risk. But in reality, I would be more inclined to ask, okay, show me the numbers, show me the beef, and then it becomes a very unfruitful discussion, because it's in many cases it's just about allegations. So then you have the threat actors on one side, and then you have the defense actors on the other side, and they all participate in some kind of theater play, just like a kabuki theater, where the villains are clearly identified, and also the defenders, the threat hunters, etc. And the unsuspecting public says, well, what's going on here? Just imagine for a second, why is this theater play going on? Because we don't see the same thing for ransomware, as an example. You don't need to convince anybody about the threats, etc. You just point to the numbers, and in many cases, people are, my peers 100 miles away, they have actually experienced a ransomware attack. So that is the platform on which we will be arguing today. And again, I found this very concerning, this development, because it also leads to a disconnect between marketing and the people who actually execute OT security, cyber physical security, because many of those are more engineering types, and they just wonder, what are they even talking about? And in many cases, it's just counterproductive. However, let's just look at some examples to give you an idea when I say, well, I find this rather concerning. So let's look at Exhibit 1. That's the Buyer's Guide to OT Cybersecurity by Honeywell. This is a public document. You can download it from the internet. And let's just check what they are telling us. Certainly, I always welcome any help that we can get in order to pick the right cybersecurity solution, even though one could argue, well, this is probably just a little bit biased because it comes from one of these vendors, and they're also offering their own OT security solution, which comes from the acquisition of SCADAfence. So what to know before choosing a vendor? This part 1 of this guide explains the full extent of the threat to OT networks. So this is good. I want to learn about the full extent of threats to OT networks. And then we start with understanding the OT, XIoT cybersecurity challenge. I don't know why vendors throw in these silly new acronyms like XIoT. I think Clarity started that development. I'm not sure what it actually is supposed to give. Okay, so let's look at the rising threat. Here's the thing, again, when you talk about threats are immaterial. You cannot put a number to that. And I tell you why. So you will see that in a second. If you would talk about actual cyber physical attacks on the record, that's a different story. But let's look at the rising threat. Cybercrime is increasing at an exponential rate. Show me the numbers. That exponential rate, it is not backed up by fact. I doubt that it actually is increasing at an exponential rate. Cybersecurity Ventures predicts that the cost of cybercrime will reach 8 trillion in 2023 and expected to rise 10.5 trillion by 2025. So cybercrime, and just for you to note, now we are not at this point. We are not talking about cyber physical attacks. No. So this is in general cyber crime. The NotPetya attack alone cost more than 3 billion. How would you know? Anyway, let's just assume it's okay. But how does that relate to OT security? And here now we are getting to the point. As AP Moller-Maersk and FedEx experience approximately 300 million each in damages. That may or may not be true, but it has nothing to do with OT, my friends. So those attacks, those ransomware attacks, and I would just imagine that pretty much all of my listeners are aware of those attacks. They have nothing to do with OT. Just like the Colonial Pipeline attack, they were attacks on IT. At a company that also happens to operate some OT, but the OT systems were not affected. And my point is, if this is a pattern, and you will see that as I go through other examples, I have to ask, why are you talking about IT attacks when allegedly you want to point to OT? That makes me suspicious, because it makes me to believe, well, if the problem was really so big in OT, why don't you show all those examples for OT, for cyber physical attacks? Recently announced vulnerabilities such as blah, 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 and Schneider Electric Triton Trices indicate that weaknesses compromising the safety and reliability of control systems exist in many industrial control systems. That is total BS, my friends. The Trices, I call it the Triconics attack. I am not inclined to adopt those silly names that some cybersecurity vendors slap on those attacks. The Triconics attack is not a vulnerability. It was an attempted attack against a particular safety system, Triconics, now sold by Schneider Electric. That was not a vulnerability. If you want to understand the Triconics attack, there is a video on our channel there I go to explain it to some detail. But just for starters, the vulnerability that was exploited here was in the infrastructure, in the network architecture of the asset owner. That is clear as day. So if you want to go to learn a little bit more detail about that, I urge you to look up the S4 talk by Mr. Goodmanis. Unfortunately, I forgot his first name. Sorry, Goodmanis. So, but you will find it. Goodmanis was there when the attack happened, and he will tell you some very interesting insights, how it actually materialized, and it all had to do with the network architecture and the totally failed security provisions at the asset owner. So this has in no way anything to do with those vulnerabilities that exist in many industrial control systems. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we wouldn't have many vulnerabilities in industrial control systems. I'm just saying that this argument is nonsense. It is just factually incorrect. Each network contains a combination of elements that are there to control critical services. Why? Each OT network contains elements that connect critical services. And if you have followed me, you will know why. They try to use the term critical and criticality as often as they can in order to establish some relevance here. It's all about creating drama. Why would you know what's in my OT networks? Why that would be critical? While others are there to improve security and safety, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, is critically important. Guys, please check out my last webcast about criticality. And really, I urge you. And because criticality is one of those terms where when you take a closer look, you will find two things. First, most of the time it's used in a BS manner just to catch attention. And the other times when you want to use it in a more engineering fashion, you'll find, well, it's actually pretty difficult to define. Now it gets really good. Now we are getting to the money shot here. The Purdue model for OT cybersecurity. Guys, the Purdue model is not for OT cybersecurity. It never was, it never will be, but we will get into the details. If you want to get a quick refresher of that Purdue model, there is actually also one of the webcasts that I did a couple of weeks ago is particularly on the Purdue model, and it will give you all the background info that you may need. The Purdue model of cybersecurity, it never was a model of cybersecurity, Honeywell. Please take that. You are just, you don't know what you're talking about. Provides a structured framework for securing OT networks. No, it does not. Developed in this hierarchy categorizes OT systems, correct, into distinct levels based on their functions and interactions with physical processes, correct. It guides the implementation of cybersecurity measures, no, and segregates network traffic within OT networks, no. That is not what it's meant to do. Outlining robust protection for critical infrastructure. Now we have that critical again. And that is not what the Purdue model does. It does not outline robust protection. It was never thought about being about protection. The model consists of 6 levels. That's interesting, including process control, blah, blah, blah. Purdue refines risk layers and security zones. No, it does not. The term security zone was never part of Purdue. It was introduced by IEC 62443. 62443, excuse me. So if you want to get an idea of security zones, in my opinion, one of the better concepts in IEC 62443, but as a whole, 62443, I think it's a very useful, practically useful approach. And if you want to learn anything about zones, you check out 62443 and ignore that nonsense about Purdue. Purdue has nothing to do with security zones. Now, the 6 levels of the Purdue model of cybersecurity for OT. And it's so funny. Guys at Honeywell, why don't you know this? Why do you come up with this nonsense? You must know better. I hope somebody at Honeywell must know better that the Purdue model is not a model of cybersecurity for OT. So level 0 process, physical processes and equipment from the core of OT system. I don't know why it would be the core, but anyhow, let's just stick with that. Includes devices like sensors, actuators, motors, and valves. So, guys, motors and valves are actuators. So I don't know why they're specifically called out here. Responsible for controlling and monitoring physical. No, they don't control physical operations. The control is at a different layer. The level 1, guys. That's where control takes place in Purdue. Isolated from the network infrastructure to ensure integrity and safety of physical processes. No, it does not. It is not isolated from network infrastructure. Why? Well, you go into any manufacturing shop, especially discrete manufacturing. Do you have an idea how many actuators, for example, VFD drives, virtual frequency drives, do you have any idea how many of those devices are connected directly to the network? Honeywell, you should know this. You go into the average discrete manufacturing shop, you will find hundreds of VFDs directly connected to the network. Same thing in the process industries, where you have things like valves directly connected to the network. Well, how shocking is that? You must know this. So why are you just writing this nonsense here? It's not isolated from the network, and this is not to ensure integrity and safety of physical processes. No, it's simply because the analog hardwired, as it is called in the industry, those hardwired connections happen to be just much cheaper. So when you connect to most simple actuators and sensors, they have an analog interface. Like, it's just 20 milliamperes, just like in the old days. and that still persists because it's cheaper. That's why, and not because it ensures the integrity and safety. And then it, again, focuses on safety, integrity, and protection against physical tampering. No, it does not. Level 1 basic control occur here. Now, systems and assets monitor and send commands to devices at level 0. Yes. Again, here, basically, they are saying it here, and that conflicts with that previous statements, like those actuators are responsible for controlling physical operations. No, that takes place in level 1. Programmable PLCs, RTUs, and IEDs. Yes, that's right. Communication with level 1 is limited to immediate control functions and isolated from higher level systems. Well, maybe not. That is not something that would be mandated by the Purdue model or even specified. That is not a thing. So this whole protection thing or segregation thing, that's not part of Purdue. That's just made up. Supervisory control, SCADA systems, manages data collection, visualization, blah, blah, blah. A bit bridges the gap between basic control and enterprise levels. DMZ. That's interesting because in other accounts of the Purdue model, at level 3, you would not find the DMZ. Right, so you would find the historian there and the plant systems. So I don't know who came up with this idea. The DMZ is usually in many publications positioned at layer 3.5, but Honeywell thinks differently. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't care. As I have said many times, Purdue is a waste of time. And we are only going through this exercise to make you aware that OT security marketing has completely disconnected with any engineering reality. That's the whole point here, right? This is why I bother you once more with the Purdue model. Facilitates bidirectional data flow between OT and IT systems while managing cyber risk. Okay, and then we have the enterprise zone that is usually placed at level 4. I don't know why they need a level 5. Typical IT network or primary business function, blah, blah, blah. So disruptions here can lead to economic damage or critical infrastructure failure. Guys, why are you so obsessed with the critical infrastructure? Because OT security that is not limited to critical infrastructure. Everybody with factory automation needs to implement it. Now, it gets better. It gets better. The Purdue model is designed to provide effective access controls while maintaining a hierarchical flow of data between IT and OT systems. No, that is not true. It's not designed to provide effective access controls. Access control has no business in Purdue. While IT cybersecurity will focus on blah, blah, blah. So this CIA nonsense they're completely veering off in that sentence. That is completely unrelated to the Purdue model. So let's just ignore that. The Purdue model establishes an air gap between OT and IT systems. And this is probably, so this is the money shot, guys, right? It is the Purdue model establishes an air gap between OT and IT systems. I was told to believe that this separation occurs at the DMZ, the 3.5, which doesn't exist in Honeywell's nomenclature. But now I learned that the Purdue model is actually an air gap, which is interesting because an air gap means there is zero connectivity. All right, please keep that in mind. Zero. There is no way that data can travel directly from one zone to the other. That's an air gap, and that is obviously not in the Purdue model. And it contradicts what Honeywell has said earlier, where they say, no, this is the hierarchical flow of data between IT and OT. If you have an air gap, there is no data flow possible. So that is, I don't know, for me, I have to say I'm really baffled how they can come up with this nonsense in a publication that is intended to make them look competent in OT security, so that you would be inclined to check out their offerings. And so, man, these guys really know their shit, and so therefore, let's buy some SCADA fans. I don't get the point here. Unlike IT models, I'd consider connectivity and protocol in addition to blah blah blah. So let's keep it at that. I am totally baffled about this lack of competence. And again, so I mean, it's pretty clear the reasoning behind this. Let's just slap some of the buzzwords on there and try to create the impression that we know what we are doing in OT security. But I really have to say, so you are doing yourself a disservice, Honeywell, and also to the industry in general. I'm very confident that there are so many good people at Honeywell who know this stuff inside out from an engineering perspective. And, it doesn't help us. It doesn't help your teams if you publish stuff like that. Because anybody who does know the technicalities, they don't know what they're talking about. And I think it also is not a good idea to try to just get through with that by convincing people without that technical background, such as the C-suite. This vendor, they know what they are talking about, because at some point in time they will also find out. They may know what they're doing, but with this marketing collateral, they send out different signals. Okay, so don't get me wrong. This is not about bashing a particular vendor here. That is not my intention. And again, I'm very confident that Honeywell has many competent people in that space, but they don't show it here, and they are not. They didn't send their best to write or review this collateral. But this is not limited to a specific vendor. So let's just look at another example. And just FYI, I'm going into overtime in this webcast because I don't want to pick up that topic anytime soon. So let's just get over it in one session. And I just want to give you additional context, if only to make it clear. No, this is not about me bashing Honeywell. No, this is a general industry trend that I find deeply, deeply concerning. So let's just look at another example, but this time by Rockwell. Again, you would imagine, well, Rockwell, they know their shit, right? Just I think a couple of months ago, they acquired Burf Industrial. That they should also know their shit. And now we are looking at this publication that I picked up on LinkedIn. Building resilience in manufacturing, the critical need for OT cybersecurity. Why OT cybersecurity is no longer a nice to have, but a must have for survival in this new area. So now it gets interesting from a different angle. Again, you see critical. Just as a reminder, check out my last webcast where I specifically focus on criticality. And here we are already. Here we are shown the goods. A must-have for survival. That means if you don't do your job in OT cybersecurity, if you fail, you will have blood on your hands because this is about mere survival. Let's check out why. So let's check their argument out. So the evolution, this is mostly about ransomware. I would say good point, because that is the most prominent risk that we are facing right now, in my opinion. The evolution of ransomware has also bypassed information technology systems into OT, raising concern among manufacturers as attacks on these critical infrastructures can bring far more significant implications beyond financial losses. So they're alluding to that safety angle. Again, for the IT guys, just as a repetition, safety means risk to life and limb. And if you ask me, no, this is a statement that is factually incorrect. The evolution of ransomware is not transcending into OT, at least not so far. It's not what we have seen so far. So there is no data to back this up by pointing to attacks on the record. We did see many ransomware attacks, successful ransomware attacks on asset owners who happen to also operate operations technology and who face disruptions, but not because OT systems had been implicated. And that is something that you, in my opinion, should separate. So that has nothing to do with each other. And again, don't get me wrong. Sometimes people call me out on LinkedIn. No, you're totally underestimating the risk. No, I'm not. Guys, wait a second. So this is an important point. I have told you many times, and I will continue to do so, you must prepare against ransomware in OT. And how do you do that? By securing your Windows boxes. Ransomware affects Windows systems. It doesn't affect your VFDs. It doesn't affect your PLCs. It affects your Windows boxes. I said it 100 times. You have to protect your Windows boxes because ransomware is an important risk. So that we are totally clear about this. My point here is it's nonsense to try to back this argument up by pointing to things like Colonial Pipeline or Maersk, right? There is no logic behind that, because those attacks on the record did not impact OT systems. So those are two different things. So that is just it's factually incorrect here. And then we sit down with in Bhavanan Ratimam. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. And he shares sort of and why setting up this cybersecurity program for manufacturers has become a necessity. Absolutely right. You must have a cybersecurity program. Basically, nobody has one, but he is right on the money. Otherwise, your OT security efforts will have no direction and also no baseline against which you could measure your success or failure. What else do we have here? He shares that carry a much greater risk than before. So manufacturers today carry a much greater risk than before regarding cybercrime. I don't see that. Why? When ransomware affects OT platforms, which so far it didn't, organizations may face more than monetary loss. Now, please tell me how. Ratinam. Please tell me how. So they're alluding again to the potential safety implications, and that is not a thing. If you prepare, if you do your network segregation properly, and then even let's just assume a ransomware attack happens, and you did not, just like the guys with the Triconex attack, you did not have any meaningful segregation with a safety network. That results in monetary loss only, because the whole point of the ransomware is to disrupt operations. And you know what happens when you disrupt a safety system? It will fail safe. That's the whole point of a safety system. And that is exactly what you have seen in the Triconex attack. The system was compromised. It detected the compromise and failed safe. Right, so it got the process into a safe state. It shut the process down in a safe manner. That's what a safety system is for, and for nothing else. So that doesn't make any sense. A ransomware attack, please explain it to me. Maybe I've overlooked something, but a ransomware attack will not result in safety implications. OT assets are often part of the critical infrastructure. Again, this obsession with critical infrastructure. Yes, they are, but also they're also part of the non-critical infrastructure. They're a part of manufacturing, of building automation, etc. So aside from financial loss, ransomware on OT systems can also compromise the safety of employees at the plant. No, they cannot. If you disagree, please make your point so that engineers can understand it. Maybe I've overlooked something. Okay, then they point to, I think this is Dragos's poster child malware. Pipedream is one of the first known ICS malware to target OT protocols. Yeah, it tries to manipulate PLCs by sending rogue Modbus packets to those PLCs. Guys, I mean, this is so outdated, stale stuff. This is how the whole business of OT security started, by a man named Eric Byrus back in the days, working for I think a university in Canada, British Columbia Institute of Technology, I think it was called, and he pointed out, oh, you can turn off the lights by sending malicious Modbus packets to those controllers. This is blah, blah, blah. So that was in 2022 that Pipedream so that the Pipedream malware was discovered. And guess what? We haven't seen a single case, a single successful attack where it was actually used. Isn't that strange? So that brings me once again to the point that this is all the threats and the potential risks, etc., but they don't back it up with facts, which would be actual attacks on the record. And the malware that can be deployed globally against many devices in any sector. Yeah, probably it can, but it hasn't been deployed globally in many devices in any sector. Take that, right, Rockwell, and then the only way I don't see the connection here for organizations is to be a step ahead of this mirror is by a comprehensive OT security pro. Well, again, yes, I agree. That is what you should have and what most people don't. Keeping up with the ever-evolving landscape, the ever-evolving threat landscape, right? Where malware like Pipe Dream is only the tip of the iceberg. Okay, now please, Rockwell, show us the rest of the iceberg, please. Certainly they don't, because there is no rest of the iceberg. Right? Otherwise, this Pipe Dream and this Colonial Pipeline attack and all those other examples, Maersk, Norsk Hydro, they wouldn't be beaten to death if there was more that they could present, like everything below that tip of the iceberg. So that is like the line of argument that you will often hear. Oh, this is just the tip of the iceberg. No, it's not. I just dispute this argument. Just show us. If you know the whole iceberg, show us the whole thing. So just bring on the scary shit. And then maybe we have overlooked something. I'm always eager to learn. Okay. As technology continues to evolve, so will the cyber threat landscape. Why? It doesn't make sense to me. So we are getting a new PLC, that is so much faster, etc. We are using AI and cool stuff, and so will the cyber threat landscape evolve. Why? I don't see any logic in here. Blah, blah, blah. And so let's just try to wrap it up here rather quickly. Capelli shares the rapidly changing cyber threat environment in OT has a significant impact on risk and resilience of operations. Why? How? They don't say so. It's just an allegation. And that is, I think, what I asked you to take away from it. Just do your fact-checking, guys. Just tell those proponents, come on, just put the beef on the table, right? Why does it have? Why is that rapidly changing? How does it rapidly change? Well, educate us. I'm eager to listen. But as these are just unsubstantiated allegations, I have any right to refute those allegations without presenting any fact as well. That's called Hitchens' razor, my friends. You can even look that up on Wikipedia if you want to. So let's try to wrap this up here. Unfortunately, as technology evolves, IT and OT convergence becomes inevitable. I don't know why that is. I see that again. I would agree. It will become inevitable. It is happening all over the place, but I don't see that as unfortunately as technology evolves. So why is that unfortunate? That's an absolute necessity, friends. It will take place whether you like it or not. And if you ask me, I said no. That is a development that is to be welcomed because it will lead to better productivity. Certainly, it will. All right. So that is not unfortunate, and I wouldn't see why that would be a bad thing. So here, this is probably their best line that I can relate to full-heartedly. Tips for employee security training: create engaging, fun content. Hell yes, that's what I'm trying to do. and even if you don't find it funny, at least hopefully I get you engaged by also being provocative every now and then, because we need discussion and debate more than anything else. I mean, if you're like me, you're just sick and tired of the repetition of these tail arguments, how the threats are ever evolving, and the critical this and the critical that, it's just boring, and it doesn't lead us to any improvements in OT security. And this is why I suggest to just have more debate, have more challenging discussions, do more fact checking. Don't let them get away with these blank, I wouldn't even call those arguments, just allegations, right? Because they are doing us a disservice. They're causing this disconnect. And in my opinion, this whole marketing endeavor has entered a death spiral, where the only recourse that they seem to see is to always try to take it a notch higher. Now it's even more critical than last year or last month, right? And therefore you have to act right away. And then the only thing that they can point to is that handful of cyber attacks that happened, I don't know, a decade ago, or had nothing to do with OT security, just like Colonial Pipeline, the poster child of an app-used cyber attack that is mislabeled as an OT attack when no OT system was impacted. And again, this is not about bashing particular vendors. You could even find that same argument, to my displeasure, I have to say, in ISA, right? So here's a publication from ISA 62443. I said it earlier, so I have an excuse. I'm very pro 62443, but even they publish nonsense, right? What you see here. So this is like for some reason, many of those organizations, and certainly the vendors, they feel an urge to make their point why you should actually care about OT security, and so and then they cannot help to point to some well-known, notorious cyber physical attacks. And this is what the list looks like for IEC 62443 for the working group. And look at that. They start with the Marucci-Shire attack that happened back in 2000, executed by a man named Vitek Boden, if you bother to research that. And I'm just baffled. While they drag out old Vitek from his retirement, the man spent a couple of years in prison, and that was. That has so little to do with today's environment, but however, it at least it was an actual cyber attack carried out by radio modem, if you're interested in the details, against control systems at a sewage plant. So he opened this mofo, opened the floodgates and and dumped sewage in the environment. Then we have Stuxnet, okay. Then we have the ICS supply chain attack. Well, guys, this wasn't an actually accomplished attack. Havax was a malware that did not cause any documented material damage on the OT side. And don't get me wrong, again, I would give you that Havax is a very concerning malware. But is it a good idea to list it as one of the reasons why you definitely should step up your OT security game? No, in my opinion, it's not. German steel mill. Oh, I love it, right? Because hey, the method is blank. Why is that? IC 62443. What was the method? And the answer would be, well, we don't know. Nobody knows, because this was just an allegation. In case you didn't know, it was alleged by an official government organization, the German BSI. That's like the German NKIK, if you will. And in one of their reports years ago, they alleged in two paragraphs, two nonsensical, very abstract paragraphs, there was this cyber-physical attack against the steel mill, without providing any form of evidence that it actually happened. And I can tell something about it because I researched this attack. And guess what? At the time, I was still living in Germany. I live in the US. And I have never found any piece of evidence. And when being challenged by many people, like BSI could never actually follow up with to make this credible. And this is why that method field is blank, because we just don't know. But we are still absolutely convinced that it actually happened. Then 2015 Ukrainian power grid, that did happen. Same with the 2016 attack. Well, so I would give it to them. So that is in my count, that's the second and third actual cyber-physical attack. Global shipping company, obviously referring to Maersk, NotPetya, that was a ransomware attack, did not impact any OT systems. Why is it here? And I mean, I can tell you why, but without even having to go through the whole list, because the number of actual cyber-physical attacks on the record is so low that they feel an urge, to include something else that might, for the unsuspecting layperson, sound like a cyber-physical attack. But what all these organizations or clever marketing people miss is the following. So let's just say all those 10 or 12 attacks that they list here, let's just assume that really, that was huge, right? That was huge. What they fail is, even if they were real and huge, from a risk perspective, guys, please get this in your head. This would necessarily lead you to conclude, well, we can just ignore the risk. Why? Because risk involves statistics and predictions. And if you want to convince me that I have to invest, let's just say 5 million in OT security, which is not a big number. So that's a very reasonable number for any mid-sized company, right? If you want to convince me by telling me, there have been 12 really nasty cyber-physical attacks, and you would probably then ask, okay, when? Like last month? No. Last year? No, like in the complete history of mankind. And then if you know anything about risk, you would have to conclude, well, then I can ignore that risk. Because from a statistical perspective, it is so minimal that it makes no sense to invest 5 million. That is your the long and short of your stupid argument when you want to point to those 10 or 12 cases, of which more than half are just made up because they are not actual OT attacks. They didn't involve any OT systems. Okay, that is the long and short of it. And let me just reiterate that point because I know what's going to happen anyway. LinkedIn will be lit with criticism of my perspective. You don't playing the risk, etc. No, that's not what I'm doing. I am just telling you, your argument is flawed. I work in OT security for, 25 years, probably almost, so it's got to be almost 30 years. So why do you think I'm still working in that field? Because I think it's very important. I like to work in this field, and I want to make progress in that field and help our customers make progress. And there are so many other ways to make your argument rather than playing that threat card. And look at what happened with the NotPetya, etc. Oh, no, NotPetya is a problem, but it doesn't have to do with OT security. Right. So, and this is what I would like you to take away here, that I'm very concerned about the direction that OT security marketing has taken. And in my opinion, it is counterproductive, and we would be well advised to find better narratives, and be able to make it clear what value we as the industry are providing outside of reducing your fear, right? So outside of the fear mongering, you don't have to be afraid. If you do your due care when it comes to protection, you don't need to fear those stupid hackers, right? So just ask yourself, why is it that all those mysterious, well-funded, state-sponsored hackers, that they didn't manage to pull off any, not even one significant cyber-physical attack in the West? Why is that? If they are so competent, they are not so competent. And again, just to say it for the thousandth time, I'm not arguing that OT security is a waste of time and resources. No, just to the contrary. I'm just saying your marketing argument is bad. It's flawed. It's not really convincing. It's only convincing to those not in the know, who don't know any better, right? And I'm just predicting this is going to backfire, because even that CEO that you might be able to scare for a day or two, at some point, he or she will find out, well, they just fooled me. They just made stuff up. And that is going to backfire. Okay, so with these viewpoints, I want to leave you for today. It was frustrating enough. For me, it's really frustrating to see that nonsense repeated over and over again. It's just like beating a dead horse. And it will not lead to increased demand. It will lead to discrediting the whole effort. And it's such a pity that this will also result in or has already resulted in this disconnect between the marketing folks and the people with the boots on the ground who do decent work. Today we have so many experts in the OT security workforce. So that is no longer the problem as it used to be a couple of years ago. No, we have absolutely high level, well-known, very competent individuals who actually can cyber secure any given OT environment. That, for me, there is no doubt about it. And this is maybe one thing I would like you also to focus on. I was very surprised many years ago. It must have been probably around 2012 when I had the opportunity to chat with a couple of guys from the Pentagon and from some three-letter agencies. And so we were just chatting over a cup of coffee or maybe a cold drink about OT security, etc. And I made the point, well, guys, because maybe you have experienced it, some of them tend to be a little bit arrogant, so they're just a little bit overcompetent, or they're overestimating their competence. And I challenged them, well, guys, let's just make a deal, because I was always making the point, well, you can make a facility cyber secure against sophisticated nation-state level OT attacks. That is possible. And I challenged them, well, I urge you, so try to cyber attack a model plant that is protected according to my strategies. And that's a good idea. Oh, we should do that. And as you may guess, they never followed up. And I don't even blame them for it, because I'm a German national. And they probably said, well, we don't want to go down that road. But the point is, the defenders, and I don't even like that term because it implies that dichotomy between defender and attacker, which frames the whole problem, in my opinion, in an unpredictable way. The people in charge of protecting OT installations against cyber attacks, against cyber physical attacks, they actually have any right to be proud and to point out that, well, come on, bring it on. Just you're a silly pen test, and we will see where this takes you. This is an attitude, I think, that I would like to see, to be proud of your work and not just be that scared rabbit that is so afraid of the snake. You don't have to be afraid of those threat actors, like those kabuki actors. They're just actors. They don't exist in real life. And if you do a deep dive, then you will figure that out rather quickly. That a lot of what you read about or hear about those threat actors might actually be a little bit over exaggerated and made up. And certainly there is a whole industry behind that, including the industry publications who do everything they can to just put fuel in the fire. And this is, my friends, what I think we must change if we want to make progress in OT security. And as you have seen in the intro, how I like to label it these days is common sense OT security. Let's just get rid of all the nonsense and the dramatization with the critical this, critical that, and let's get down to the facts. And let's use well-established procedures like the OT security program. That's the one thing that I really liked about the Rockwell publication. You're going to have an OT security program. That's absolutely right. So time to readjust OT security and put a little bit, not a little bit, put much more common sense in the whole sector. Okay, that's it for today. Sorry that it went so long, but I just wanted to get it out in one session so that hopefully we don't need to revisit that topic again anytime soon. Bye-bye. See you next time, next week.